Hi, I'm Ken Pfalzgraf, candidate for the Acton-Agua-Dulce Unified School District Board of Trustees. I'm doing this set of videos so that you, the voter, can see where I stand on issues, and hopefully you'll consider voting for me on November 8th. Today we're going to be talking about charter schools. And you see it says part 1 because there's going to be a couple of videos here, but this one is just an overview. And the reason I'm doing this video is because the Acton-Agua-Dulce Unified School District over the past couple of years, since coming from near insolvency, has used the sponsorship of charter schools as a means for a financial recovery. And there are some questions about the long term, whether that's sustainable or not. So I kind of want to go through this and give you my thoughts on this and let you know where I stand and what my concerns are. And so, let's start off with an overview of charter schools. Why charter schools? Well, California charter school law goes back into the 90s, and at that time it was thought that not everybody was being addressed by public education, standard typical public education. So the students that weren't being reached, it was thought that alternative methodologies of teaching may reach these students, give them the education that they need, and give them the opportunity to succeed like their peers. A side effect that was supposed to come out of charter schools, and probably has, is that these alternative teaching methodologies, once they were discovered, firmed up, and produced results with the students at the charter schools, could be mainstreamed into public education, therefore improving public education across the board. So, up to speed now. 9 or 10% of the kids in California that go to K through 12 schools attend charter schools. And I want to remind everybody throughout this set of videos that no one is forcing these students to go to the charter school they go to. Choice in education is becoming more popular. But again, these students have the choice to go to the public school in their area or participate in the lottery and get into the charter school, and any time they can walk away from that charter school and return. But increasing a percentage says that these charter schools are popular and that students are choosing to go to them. So there's no question that charter schools are good for public education. Charter schools are public schools. Why? Because they're funded with taxpayer dollars. In the later videos we're going to see what all that means, especially when we start talking about how public education is being privatized by some corporate interests and where the tax dollars you pay come in on that. Anyway, how is a charter school formed? Well, it starts off with a petition. Typically 50% of the students that wish to attend a charter school that's being suggested, their parents would sign a petition, or 50% of the teachers that would like to work at that charter school when it opens sign a petition. And hopefully in the latter, that's not under duress of employment, like we're going to open this charter school and if you don't work here, then if you don't sign the petition, you're not going to work here. Hopefully there's nothing like that going on. Then there's a public hearing when the charter organizer comes to the local school district within the boundaries of that school district and approaches the school board and said, we would like to open a charter here in the district. The school board has to hear that. You cannot deny a charter just because you don't want to hear it. And that's a public process, so the public sits there. The people that want the charter come forward. They say why and what, and anybody that may not want the charter has the opportunity to say so. Then an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, which is basically agreement of how the charter will operate, the services it will provide, and the educational outcomes and benefits that are expected. And then hopefully this is a transparent process. So in the public hearing, when someone says, well, this is a legal methodology, we wouldn't come back later and find out that the public had supported this, but there's $300,000 worth of legal fees or lawyers or lawsuits or things like that. And that'll be on another video, that topic. But all goes well. The charter school opens up and everything goes fine, and the educational outcomes that are expected are actually produced, and everyone does well. Now, more and more we're seeing the effects of charter schools on traditional public schools, because every child that leaves or every student that leaves a public school that goes to a charter school takes the funding that follows them. So every student in a public school gets a certain amount of funding that comes with them, and when they leave, that funding goes with them. And there are concerns about that. For example, the charter sponsor can take 3% of the funding that goes with the student leaving the charter with 97%. So a school district may be looking at, as their students leave, they're taking 97% of the funding with them. And if they're the sponsor, they only get 3% back. So you're watching funding decline and enrollment decline. And this can further exacerbate the problem that a district with a shrinking enrollment can have if there are too many charters opening up in that same district. Another effect is there's motivations. People that want to start a charter school and have their children attend charter schools, or students that want to attend charter schools, or teachers that want to teach at a charter school, typically want something different, improved, and they're highly motivated. And so typically in the early years of a charter school, especially in the first and second year, you've got a group of students that are highly motivated, and those students tend to produce high scores. So some argue that when those highly motivated students that produce high scores leave their typical public school, what happens is that the scores from that school decline, and the charter schools over here with highly motivated students and their scores are very high. If that's the case, then what happens is the normal students that produce normal test scores, or even below that a bit, their lower scores can be artificially magnified by the loss of these students. They go to the charter school. Now, we all know that ultimately charter schools have lotteries where you compete, so eventually what will happen is the local demographic, if you indeed have the charter school within your district boundaries, the local demographic coming in through the lottery will typically even out the scores and everything else, where you're not really going to have that much difference between the public school score and the charter school score, unless there's something markedly different or effective or ineffective in the teaching methodologies between the public school and the charter school. So at the end, what we're seeing now is we're starting to see public schools being highly resistant to charter schools, because with increased popularity, an increased percentage of students leaving and going to the charter schools, the funding that goes with them goes on. So this was a basic overview of charter schools. Again, I'm going to remind everyone that I support charter schools. One of my daughters goes to a charter school. She does well there. Another student may do well there, not well there. It's choice in education nowadays. But hopefully the takeaway from this video is that charter schools are formed by the request of people, that there is an open, honest, and transparent, we keep hearing that word, transparent process, and that eventually the charter school movement hopefully will produce a leveling out of things, both in funding and that. So I'm going to close out with that one. Next time we're going to talk about the taxpayer-funded turf wars that are happening now over charter schools. Thank you, and subscribe, like, comment, and share my video, please. See you next time.